Hi, welcome to Cliterally Speaking the podcast. I'm Michelle Doherty.
And I'm Emily Lane.
We are BFFs dedicated to bringing you conversations between girlfriends over a bottle of wine.
Oh, I am so excited about the wine part.
Oh, me too. So pull up a chair, grab your glass,
and let's get talking.
Hey, Emily, how are you today?
Hey, Michelle. Well, I think I'm a little extra good today. Nothing says, I'm having a good day like day drinking.
And, anytime we can look for an excuse to have some champagne and bubbly during the day, we certainly do that.
Absolutely.
So, fortunately, because of where our guest for today's episode is located, that it made us have to drink early in the day.
That's right. I mean, you didn't have to twist my arm too hard, but...
Well, right. I mean, it's not like we just woke up and started drinking.
No. My goodness,
that's for another time.
So how are you doing today?
I'm good. I was, as I was relaying before the episode, I'm on a quest to find bagels for my boys. That sounds like a hashtag, bagels for my boys, because since St. Louis County reinstated their new, or reinstated some of the stay-at-home orders, you can't find bagels at the Bread Co. anywhere. It's crazy. And then so I'm just checking the app. I don't know if I have to reserve bagels a couple days in advance, to get them right out of the oven. I'm not sure. So it's just one of those things. And you?
I feel like I've been living here at Shock City a little bit. I've been doing a little podcast project for the government, the part of the exchange program that I went to El Salvador with in February. Because of COVID, the mentorship hasn't been able to transpire, where we would go back to El Salvador and they'd come here to have more hands-on learning. So we decided to create a podcast to share information. And so I've been doing that, which has been really fun. But I feel like this is my second home now.
Well, perfect. You can have Thanksgiving with the guys here at Shock City.
That podcast isn't as fun because there is no wine during that one. So,
well, give it a little time, Emily. You might be able to get them to switch that around. Well, and also this is the launch of season 6. Cheers to that.
Cheers
to season 6, everybody. Can
Good
you believe
reason for some bubbles.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that real quickly here. So today we are drinking this Castel de St. Paul, and actually it's not Paul, it's Pau. Pau, P-A-U. And we have actually had a fair amount of this, not on the show, but we've had a fair amount of it. It's a staple because it is an absolutely delicious cava that has no added sugar. So, that means no headaches.
And that's important when you're day drinking.
It absolutely is. And the price point is kind of amazing. It falls in between that $12 and $15 price point, depending on where you're buying it. And, nice tiny little bubbles. It's got wonderful notes of kind of lemon curd, lime, apricot, green apple, all those wonderful a little yeastiness in there. I think it's just really good bang for the buck. Love this wine. Really excited to share it on the show.
Yeah, it's delightful. I was glad you brought that, and glad that the wine merchant it's given us some to drink on our to start our 6th season.
Absolutely. Seems very appropriate. I was hoping that we could find some good African wine today because our guest,
Cassie Morgan,
is actually talking to us from her home in Africa.
In Malawi. This is our first intercontinental episode. We've had, guests from another country, but they've been in North America.
Right.
So this is our first intercontinental. So welcome to the show, Cassie.
Thank you all so much. I'm so happy to be here, and apologies for not having Africa wine, but I do have something better. Ooh. It is Malawi gin.
Oh my.
Ooh.
That looks That
What
looks
are the
dangerous.
notes?
What are the notes?
How does
Strong?
that? Yeah.
Earthy? Be careful. Don't finish this.
All right.
Don't drink that whole bottle on an episode.
No, do not. I
My
do not recommend
gosh.
Not unless you want all of your secrets told for the world, right?
it. Exactly.
So listeners might be wondering like how we got connected to Cassie, and so one of Emily's neighbor, who
A fan and a neighbor.
Laura,
Yeah.
we were having a fire pit with her, and she was talking about her friend Cassie, who is an epidemiologist and is in Malawi, Africa, and is also from St. Louis. And we were like, can you connect us to her? Because she sounds so fascinating. And so that's how we got connected to Cassie. And then Emily and I worked our charms on her, and we were able to get her to agree to come on and do an episode with us and talk about all things being in Africa, doing what the work you do, what it's like, and anything else that we feel like talking about.
A little bit about
today.
that journey too, because I think that's absolutely fascinating. Of kind of your journey of ending up where you are. It's amazing. Some of the experiences that you've had along the way. So
that would explain why she has a St. Louis accent versus an African accent on our show. So so tell us how. I mean, I know you said you're not feeling so well, so that's why you're not drinking with us, but you will drink later when you're no longer taking your medicine.
Promise.
Which I think is like what an adult thing to do. How many times have we drank on our medicine? I don't know. I can raise my hand on that one.
I pretty much always do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how is it today or this evening in Africa and in Malawi?
It's good. It's a beautiful day. So we are in the midst of summer. So it has been boiling hot in the 90s here. So yeah, I've been dealing with that, but it's been wonderful. We're behind you all with our COVID curve, so our cases have been in the single digits.
Wow.
Yeah,
What
the
do you
last
attribute
few
that
months.
to?
There's been a lot of speculations. Some of it is partly that all our environment is mostly outdoors for the majority of the country. In city centers, you'll get indoor spaces that'll get crowded, but mostly everything is outside. Scientists are also exploring relationships between the TB vaccine, which is largely administered here, and maybe that has some protective factors. But we're not really sure yet, but we're really thankful. We were scared when it all started because what the numbers were showing was devastating.
Well, and you really don't have the infrastructure there to really manage volumes of cases like we're having here.
Yeah, it's exactly that. The healthcare infrastructure is lacking. And so for those that would need to be hospitalized, when there's tens of ICU beds in the country, we just can't handle that. And we can't rapidly build that infrastructure. So that was the biggest concern. Yeah.
So you said you're currently having summer. We've been doing this 8 months. Have you been through winter with it yet? Have you had we're going into winter now. Like we started it in the spring, all through summer, the fall. So like I'm trying to reverse that hemisphere wise.
Yeah, so we started in the winter, actually.
Okay.
And I mean, we don't really have a drastic winter here. It will get to like the 50s.
Okay.
Yeah, in some parts it'll drop to the 40s at night. But I mean, that's winter.
So snowfall is not a regular occurrence.
I wish, no.
Do you miss it? Do you miss the snow?
I do miss the snow, but we get so much rain, thunderstorms, like all the time. So that's beautiful.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
no.
So that would have like be a contributing factor that you have not had a temperature or climate that forced everybody indoors 24 hours out of the 24-hour day,
Right.
What about I know when we talked on our meeting before, you talked about all the fresh vegetables, and do you think that the diet and the that's available to everybody is also a contributing factor for
healthier living in general, right?
Well, I probably aren't eating
Better
a bunch of
foods?
Cheetos.
Right.
And can you get Cheetos there?
You get Cheetos? I don't think I know. You cannot get Cheetos. You can get Doritos, but you cannot get Cheetos.
Okay.
And I wonder how expensive the Doritos are. Are they like crazy expensive because they came so far?
Well, they actually, I think they are processed in SA, and they're like the weirdest flavors. Like you've never seen them in America. I don't know where
Okay.
they come from, but they've never seen these bags of like, what is this flavor? It's really odd. But yeah, the
Okay.
diet here is so different. If you live by the lake, you eat fish, right, every day.
Mm-hmm.
The main grain is this like corn base that's like really starchy but like heavy. Lots of beans, greens, tomatoes. So the diet is completely different. There's not a lot of processed food for those that are like in the rural areas, which is mostly everyone. So yeah, it's completely different. And people walk everywhere. Uh,
So there's
there's
Mm-hmm.
no vehicles.
exercise.
Oh yeah, lots of exercise. Our population is not old. We're
Mm-hmm.
very very young. Most of our population is very young. Most people don't live till past 65.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a very very young
That's
population.
surprising,
What's
especially given the walking and, fruits and vegetables that are local and full of, goodness. Is it lack of healthcare or what? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the healthcare. HIV and AIDS is 10% here. In some places,
Wow.
it's 14% in certain cities here. So that's a huge factor. Malaria is a huge factor. Certain things where if you don't catch them early, if you don't have the proper treatment, you're not going
Mm-hmm.
to survive. When the babies get malaria, yeah. So there's lots of health factors that are really devastating here that
So
contribute.
you're there to do HIV research. So, can you talk a little bit about, again, 10%, 14%? That is, can you imagine our population dealing with those kinds of
I don't even know what the
numbers?
numbers are in the United States. Do you have that? You know that at all, Cassie? What the
They're really
HIV?
low. They're really low. I mean,
Okay.
compared not really low, but comparatively to here, they're
Yeah.
in the 3% area or lower. I mean, depending on the population you're looking at. But yeah,
And
it's
is there continued growth and spread, or is education or resources coming in that are helping to assuage that? What's happening with the trend?
Yeah, so it unfortunately, so as far as people dying from HIV, we are now getting people on treatment, and
Okay.
so that has changed immensely over the last few years. But what we're not doing well is prevention. Um,
Mm.
so we're still having the new cases pop up, and so that's actually a new area that we're investigating here, and we actually just started a project, and so really figuring out how do we prevent HIV? Like what are the channels that we can, how do we get to the youth? How do we get to the sex workers and all of those populations? And make sure we're targeting them. So that's a big one.
It is sex work a prevalent occupation?
Yep,
Yes. Okay.
very prevalent. Especially along. So it's a very transient country because we're like SA and Tanzania, and so we have a lot of truck drivers that come through, and a lot of people that are migrating for agricultural work, which are like primary job market. And so yeah, there's sex workers at the borders, in the larger cities especially, and yeah, it's very very prominent.
Are
So when you say SA, you're referring to South Africa for our
Yes.
listeners. So who are trying to find a country on the map that's named
mhm.
SA.
are
Right.
are
SA.
safe sex practices not recognized, not accessible? What is the key issue there?
Yeah, it is becoming more accessible, becoming more accepted. There's a lot of like risk communication around there, but condom distribution is hard. Um, and if you think about like the really rural communities, and not just like the city centers. So you're talking about people being out in the villages, handing out condoms. Condoms are so expensive here.
Really?
Oh, it is. I couldn't even believe it. I think a pack of two, and this is a population that lives on less than, mostly less than $1 a day. A pack of like two condoms is like $3 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
You gotta like wonder, like, is it because it's being imported from someplace else? Can it not be produced in the continent of Africa? I mean, latex is rubber, right? You would think that
Mm-hmm.
with all the resources they could do that within the continent, within those countries.
Yeah.
Or is
It's a,
it just, I don't know, that's crazy.
yeah, it's really crazy. And I think so there are a lot of free condoms that are available, which I think plays a factor in like the market price for the ones that are selling in the store. But then you got to think about, are those being distributed to the right people, right? Are they
Mm.
targeting sex workers? Are they targeting youth? Are they targeting these vulnerable populations? Because those are the ones that really need the condoms.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's it's a complicated
A lot of
puzzle.
hurdles.
Yeah.
And tell me about like the government infrastructure. What is that like? And are there initiatives that they're fostering to help improve the, accessibility and maybe address these concerns?
Yeah, so the government, at least with our organization, our focus is coming in and partnering with the government, and so we never try to do anything without they are leading it, and then they are so for our like technology products that we produce in order for them to see the data and numbers and make decisions, they're the end users, and so that we always partner with government entities, and so we aren't doing anything outside of that, so we aren't duplicating resources, are doing something in the vacuum and not really understanding how the system works. So when we operate in that capacity, it's great, right? We find out all these little niche things that are going on, who's who, and get to figure it out. And then they're the ones leading the effort. Whereas if we were to just come in and throw in a bunch of money and not really understand like the government infrastructure, which happens a lot all the time, people are, oh, I have a great idea. I know how to fix this problem here in this country I've never been to. Let me just go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, that's not how, that's not how things work.
Mm-hmm.
That was cute. You just wasted a bunch of money. Um, so, so that's how. So the government's really great. And over the years, we've worked here for about 5 years now, and they are really hungry for data and information that helps them make these informed decisions, and like understanding the systems and adapting their systems when it doesn't match up with what the data is saying. And so that is like really, really helpful. So like the Ministry of Health here um, is our partner and our leader, and yeah, it's our
So,
advocate.
what
Yeah.
made you want to get into this field of epidemiology and then also practice it in Africa?
Yeah, good question. Super super short answer. um, no, so I think when I was really young, I was third grade. I remember, I don't know how I stumbled upon like learning about the history of HIV and AIDS, but I was just so intrigued about the disease in itself in the epidemiology. But then also like the politics behind it, the policies, how it evolved, in the U.S. and in South Africa. And so that really, really intrigued me. And initially, I thought I wanted to become a doctor.
Okay.
And that's what I studied all through college. So I was pre-medicine. I was like, I'll be a, OBGYN or a surgeon. And I spent 4 years like shadowing doctors. And it's like, this isn't it. Like, this just isn't sticking for me. Like, I don't know what it is. Med school takes a long time, so I probably shouldn't go if I'm not sure.
Yeah. Takes a lot of
It's
money.
it's a lot of money. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take a second and figure this out. And so I spent a year doing policy work, and I actually worked in homelessness. But something clicked for me. I was like, oh, I want to see like the whole picture. I want to be behind the scenes. I want to look at the system, and affect change in that way, while also tying in like this, research, technical, like all those kind of aspects to it. And so eventually, I got distracted for a few years working in homelessness. But then I went and got my
A
master's.
worthy distraction. It's a worthy distraction.
It was a good, I thought so.
That was a worthy distraction. So
yeah, unfortunately, it kept me very busy.
So
Yeah,
you got your master's?
Yeah, so I got my master's, and yeah, got my master's in epidemiology, and then went and did a practicum here in Malawi, and it all just came together. Yeah.
And you decided you wanted to then practice in Africa,
Yep.
if possible, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think one of my apprehensions were what I was saying earlier is I don't want to work for people that think they know how to fix Africa, that think they're going to come in and make everything better, for the brown people. And so I really thought I would never find that. That would always be people just telling others what to do with their lives. And so I was so happy when I found an organization that didn't represent that. And so that was really the push for me to say, okay, I can live here. I'm a venturer, so I like to live other places. I like to see other things. And so, doing that along with my profession was like, all right, just try it out. Try it out. If you don't like it, you can go. Our company's remote, so you can really go back to the US and work from anywhere, but I have no ties, so let's try it.
So how many years now have you been there?
It has been a year and a half. Yep.
And you've been in multiple parts of the continent, right? So what are some of your observations as you've traveled around and lived in different parts?
Yeah, so it is vastly different. So when I first visited before I moved here, I went to Rwanda.
Okay.
Which is actually very similar culturally to Malawi as far as like community and like friendliness and all of that, like the same type of feeling when you arrive. Malawi is a warm heart of Africa is the best way to describe it. But it's very different from cities like Johannesburg in South Africa that are like hustle, bustle, metropolitan, exhausting, just a lot of things happening, a lot of, similar dynamics to America around like race relations and all these different types of things, which you don't experience here. And when I talk to like my Malawian friends or to my boyfriend, I have to explain race to them and like why we're so racist. That like what is happening? What are you all doing? Yeah. So it's all very different.
So what was it like when you were in Rwanda? Because what we hear, or I guess, unfortunately, the thing that pops to my mind is the movie Hotel Rwanda, but it wasn't
the genocide
that happened, several years ago. What was it like being there now? Have they reconciled? I mean, what's
the general feeling about that part of their history?
Yeah, that's
anything we can learn from them.
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's definitely so much we can learn. It is one of my favorite places in the world. One, because it is just beautiful. There's rolling hills of green, like the mountains. It is gorgeous. But also just the people, and like you said, what they've done post the genocide and how they have healed as a country. I went there with a friend that was doing research, and we stayed with these nuns, which was I was like, this is gonna be weird. And it was not. It was not weird. We ate great food. We drank way too much wine. And it was really great because they're so embedded in the community, of course. So we got to learn a lot about what was happening there. But it was beautiful. The one thing when I was there, they asked me like, "Oh, could you like teach English?" Yes, I know English pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, pretty well. And then so I went and I was teaching these students, and they are actually the last generation that really remembers the genocide, like has tangible memories. And we were writing essays, and we were talking about, talk about stereotypes, right? How is the U.S. stereotype? How are you stereotyped? And they wrote these beautiful essays, and I actually still have them. And one of the students was writing, and he said, one of the stereotype of us is that we are evil, right? That we're evil,
Mm.
that we kill each other, that's what people think about us. He's like, well, we are really a nation of forgiveness. Like, we have this dark past and things that happen, but when it was all over, like, we came back together as a community to heal. And, I live next to my uncle who killed my dad, but we forgive each other and we move on and we grow. And this was
That
a
is
17-year-old.
impressive.
A nation
Right.
of forgiveness. What
Mm-hmm.
a great, um, encapsulation of what's necessary. I think like if every nation could say that about themselves.
Mm-hmm. And then also not only within the nations, but of other nations too,
Mm.
and their relationships. I'm curious right now, the news, there's conversation going on about what's happening in Ethiopia. When you're in Africa, is everybody tuned into the news that's happening in all of the countries near, around? And what's the feeling of when you're hearing a nearly neighboring country is going through such hardship? What's the general feeling in your area?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, so Africa is kind of uh, broken up into regions. So, for example, Malawi strongly identifies with the southeastern African countries. So there's really a sense of community with that. So when things happen in Mozambique, it feels like it's happening here. Or things
Okay.
happen in Zambia. I mean, literally the border. People can cross the border every day. So it feels really close and tangible. So I think when that happens, and there's actually like political agreements between those countries, and so the
Mm-hmm.
effects are different. And when it's like Ethiopia um, or I say Kenya or something, there's still a very like deep feeling and like relation to it, but not as like tangible. Definitely way more than like Americans can identify.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah,
Okay.
there's this like unfortunate relatability to those hardships that are way more tangible here than
Mm-hmm.
like the Western countries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just find it staggering to think about, in the United States, we've had our issues, we've had that have really bubbled up over the last year. We've had, COVID, I think, has really kind of prodded them along. We've had, a lot of racial unrest. We've had the government and frustrations there, and we're seeing change. There's some concerns with COVID and more people are dying than should, but we don't have such civil unrest that people are murdering each other. We're not
yeah,
getting bombed upon. We're not, we don't have at this right now
Yeah, currently.
that kind of life trauma going on. So it's just astounding to me to think that, that right now, actively in this world, there are large populations of people dealing with this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, maybe what we do in the United States is probably a little bit more subtle
yeah,
and underhanded and backdoor kind
right,
of oppression and systemic genocide, if you will, and that's in air quotes, than what the overt. What you're referring to
Mm-hmm.
with people being bombed and things like that. Curious as to how the your friends, if everybody was watching the election and following American politics in Malawi, because we assume that the whole world follows our politics.
Right,
I mean, that's just
right.
one of the
Everybody
things,
wants
right?
to know.
If they were, what were their perceptions, and what have they asked you questions about our system and why we're so crazy?
Yes, they. I mean, they really do follow our politics. My phone was blowing up, definitely. And even when the election results came out, they're like, "Are you congratulations?" I'm like, "What do you?" Definitely congratulations. What
Yeah.
is going
Yeah.
on? But no, people were following it immensely. My so the local language here is Chichewa, and so my Chichewa tutor, he loves politics. He watches CNN obsessively. What else? Al Jazeera, and I forgot his other channel. And so when we every time we have a lesson, he was talking about he's like, "How are you feeling? What's going on? Okay, let's talk about all these protests to count the votes and the protests to not count the votes." And he just was
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
intrigued and very confused. But it's a bit of a mixed bag as far as support here. I think Malawi is a very religious country, and I remember talking to my boyfriend. Uh,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Yeah, actually, a lot of people here support Donald Trump because of his, affiliation with the church."
So
Mm.
when you say they're highly religious, are they Catholic? Are they evangelical? Are
Mm-hmm.
they
What's the religion?
Presbyterian? Or
Yeah.
is it something
Yeah,
else?
yeah, it's. Ooh, no, I'm not gonna remember.
Is it more Protestant there?
It is.
You
It
know,
is quite the mixed bag. Oh man, I should have Googled. I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay.
You don't
No
have to know
worries.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, dang it.
but more conservative, with like, I guess, the right to choose.
Oh
I mean,
yes,
is abortion legal in Malawi?
abortion is not legal in Malawi.
There you
I
go.
mean, there. If you know the right person, there are like organizations here, and there are channels, and it's just not. It's not actively protested against in any way. Actually, being gay is illegal here also.
Mm.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, yep. But again, it's
How
not
is
like
that
Tanzania.
prosecuted?
They don't.
Like, they don't. Okay.
Mm-mm.
It's just
But do they in Tanzania? Do they prosecute in
Hmm.
Tanzania?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
really.
I don't know where they are now, but in the last, gosh, was that last year? I think it was maybe 2 years ago. They had a lot of arrests, and people were like undercover and snitching
Oh
on
my
people, and yeah, it was
gosh.
a whole
Oh, it's so
thing. Yeah,
sad. Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
Which would then lead to why there's the high rates of HIV and AIDS, because people are not getting access to prevention, because then they're like, why do you need a condom? Why are you this? I mean, there's a stigma with all of that.
yeah,
So they would rather risk their lives, possibly by getting the disease, versus risking their lives to get prevention and condoms. And that's going to take years to change. I mean, it used to be that way in, the UK, back in the 60s. I mean, it was illegal for men to be homosexual and they could be thrown in jail. Even in the United States, we had those laws. So it's going to take, I don't know if we're, is it going to take another 20 years
yeah.
before Malawi could embrace homosexuality more, or like accept it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's I yeah, I think the legality of it, I think that's gonna be a while. I think, like you said, 10, 15 years in the making. Um, but there's definitely a queer culture here.
Okay.
That's being celebrated now. Because, like you said, so it is very aware that it affects access to services, you know, and all of that, which affects sexual behavior, which is an issue in and of itself. But then obviously people's life. And I actually went to a fashion show a few weeks ago, and I had no idea that it was going to be like the most beautiful queer like pride like fest in the world. I was like, what is this place? Am I still in Malawi? I mean, they were walking out with the
Oh,
pride flag, a trans flag. I seriously forgot where I was. It was so beautiful.
Wow.
Um,
oh.
and one of the ministers, I think she's a minister of labor, a deputy minister of labor, was there, and she spoke. And so, I mean, just to have that representation, and that just, it was so beautiful, and it just made me so happy. So I'm like, all right, we're moving here.
Do you think it's because it is a younger country and that your generation and younger are more accepting of, I mean, it's evident here in the United States that the millennials and the Gen Zs and whatever else labels we put on them are way more accepting of people regardless of the label that you have.
That's a good point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that young generation of, even if the 20 sums here are definitely on that line. I think even the 30 some Malawians, maybe they don't like agree with it or understand it, but they're not actively going to like say no, 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 you can't get married, or all of that. So I think, yeah, I think in the next few years, as those people become politicians, as that age group comes in, we'll hopefully get some legal traction there. Yeah.
How does Malawi treat women? Are they equal, or because I'm wondering with the religious background if women are not treated equally there.
Yeah, that's a good question. So so there's definitely gender roles play out really strongly here.
Okay.
Um, Especially in like the village and rural areas. Unemployment is incredibly high. Like most people don't have a formal
Really?
job. Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
Most people don't have a formal job. They have a like informal job, side hustle is what we call it. Like they have
Right.
five other
Yeah.
jobs. um, so yeah, yeah, no, in the villages, like the women are expected to, cook the food, take care of the children, do X, Y, and Z. Um, and also they get married very young here.
Hmm.
Uh, that's changing a little bit.
How young?
Young. They actually, I mean, young.
Like
But
younger than 20 or
The
in,
teens.
yeah, younger than,
yeah.
yeah, in the teens and early 20s.
Okay.
And they're actually, Malawi's done a really great job over the last 5 or 10 years. I can't remember when they started the campaign, but a campaign against child brides. Because
Okay.
they had an issue with young women getting married off. Um, yeah, actually, one of my housekeeper in my last house, she was actually a child bride.
Mm.
And she had children really young. She was 29. She had three children though by the time she was very young, and just really impacted her life. Couldn't finish her education, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of advocacy against that. Um, I've been seeing a lot of like advocacy against like rape in the campaign. Real men don't rape. I don't know if that's trending in the U.S. or if that's here.
Uh,
We hope so.
We hope so.
yeah.
I would hope so. We'll start it. We're
We
gonna start
hope so.
it.
Real men don't rape. You guys got that? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see campaigns going on around it. I think it's at
Right.
least more socially known that it's right.
Yeah. I
Not,
mean, again, we are
yeah.
maybe 10 years ahead socially in that section versus where you are in Malawi. Are women, do they have access to the vote? Are they able to have businesses, have their own checking accounts, like money and stuff like that?
Can they divorce?
Can they divorce?
So all those formal things, yes.
Okay.
Divorce, I think they can. I think legally, yes, but I think it's really, really difficult and socially very unacceptable. So it's like near
Mm-hmm.
impossible, and I think really, really expensive to do, just because it's really
Mm.
shunned upon. Um, but yeah, so formally, all those things are in place. I think it's still the culture of it that's evolving, and similarly, like the youth now understand, like, oh, like okay, yes, my wife can have a job, oh wait, but she can have a job and not have to clean the house, do this kids, like all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Or one of the things I found really strange. I remember when I was going out when I first got here, I was like, where are all the women? Like, where are all
Yeah.
the women in these bars? It's because it wasn't socially acceptable, not socially acceptable for women to go out to bars.
So how does that, I mean, how do people look at you being this independent woman who, I don't know, is it obvious that you're not from the area, and, how are you looked upon locally?
Yeah,
And how does that feel?
mm, mm, mm. it's it's pretty obvious. I think I have that American,
Mm-hmm.
chin up.
Vibe.
I try not to,
Yeah.
but I mean, we do. And so I think that that shows up, in my behaviors and how I interact with people. Um, and I think also one thing that's strange for me, I'm like very inclined to male friendships. I grew up with brothers, like that's my comfort. Um,
Mhm.
and that is not a thing here. Like women
Really?
and men being friends is like, what? I have a really good friend. I consider him one of my best friends here. And I remember him talking to his mom. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna grab lunch with Cassie." And she's like, "Why?" Like, that's really
Wow.
strange. Yeah. Um.
Oh,
Anyway, but I'm like, I do what I
they're
want.
missing out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's really missing out. I love having, the male friends that I have and being able to get that perspective. We've loved our B-side
Yeah,
conversations for the same kind of thing.
I
Nothing replaces my girlfriend relationships, but
right. I can
it
see though
is
where if it hasn't been socially, something that they've done for
right.
as long as I mean, we grew up with friends, like,
Yeah.
Mm,
boys in our lives like that. But if they don't have abortion, they don't have access to condoms. I mean, if you get
Right.
pregnant, your life is over. And so there may be like has been historically a sense of mistrust between the genders,
mm,
possibly,
mm.
that in time, because you can
Mm.
cross gender relationships and friendships that will then again, real men don't rape. um yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I could see where those
Yeah, that's amazing.
mindsets, had they've been there for so long, are harder to get over. So I hear your dog barking in the background.
That is my dog barking.
Because I was
Oh.
like, part of me said, we're not with Iggy Pup, because
Yeah, he's not here today. That actually
Emily's
sounds a little
dog,
bit more like your dog.
he does sound a
Oh.
little bit like Toby.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Aw.
do you foresee yourself like staying in Africa, like as long as you possibly can, or do you think someday you'll want to come back to the United States, or is there, what are your thoughts for your future?
Yeah. Usually my parents would laugh at me. I have everything planned out. I'm like, and then in 1 year, and then 2.5 years. And they're like, whatever, Cassie. We're proud of you. But I actually, I don't have that planned out right now. For once,
Oh.
I feel very settled. I mean, I have a dog. This is my first dog ever.
Yeah.
So kind of committed. I have a boyfriend,
Oh.
so also committed. More into the dog. I'm just kidding.
No,
Hey,
you don't have to,
no explanations
Yeah,
necessary.
we
We
know
totally
that.
understand. This is Cliterally
That's a
speaking the podcast.
given.
We know.
Yeah.
We know.
But yeah, no, I definitely see myself here for another 4 or 5 years. We have projects running that'll go that long that I'm really interested in. I can't envision myself back in the States right now. Um,
Mhm.
I really see the next move is, oh, maybe I'll go move over to Zambia, or somewhere else in the region. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see myself back in the States. Yeah.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
perfectly understandable. Next, I mean, the ability to live in other cultures,
Mhm.
are, I'm jealous of what you can do.
Mhm.
Um, because I'm not your age anymore. So I have a little, my outlook's a little different on like what I can do, but I think it's awesome that from St. Louis, started here, graduate of Metro High School, which, is where my kids, two of my children are, one's already graduated, one will be graduating next May, and now you are living in Africa and you're working with, populations, you're changing lives. Hopefully, I know you are positively changing lives, hopefully like lots of them, but even if you could change one, that's one less person who could, contract HIV and AIDS. Do you ever see yourself, getting a Ph.D. and, coming, working for our State Department or our, the U.S. Department of, I don't know, what would it be, U.S. Aid or anything like that?
Have you been talking to my father?
No, but I can see where he would come up with that idea too. He sounds like a very smart man.
I have been flirting with the idea of getting my PhD. I did my master's while I was working full time and doing some contracting work. So the thought is exhausting. But if I can figure out what I really want to research, and if I can tie that into my work is very supportive of that option. We have two people that are our organization is 16 people. We have two people that are getting degrees right now, and balancing that with their work. So they're very, very supportive of that. That would definitely be an option. Yeah, I've thought about it.
So, to wrap up, I'm just curious, what kind of fun things are you doing? I mean, we've talked like some pretty serious stuff today, but like, what are some fun things that you do in Malawi and Africa? Like, I guess you're not hanging out in bars because the women aren't in bars.
I still go to the bars.
Okay.
Less now during COVID, but
right.
No, there's
Is it
actually
expensive to drink in bars? I'm sorry. Can I take a side note there? Is it expensive to drink in bars? Oh, no. Okay.
It is not.
All
This
right.
bottle of gin is like $3 US.
Wow. Oh my gosh! So cheaper than a condom.
Yeah. Cheaper than a condom.
Right.
Yep. In America, this will cost you $50, so I have to bring you all some back.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was like, wait a minute.
Important question. No, it's really cheap. So yes, I drink in bars with the men. Okay. No, there's actually the cool thing about being stuck here during COVID is one, the impact has been less. So like some people's lives have been impacted less. But there's lots to do outside. I'm an outdoors person, so I love going for hikes. And we have beautiful mountain range called Malanje down in the south. I was just there a month ago, and it's surrounded by tea plantations. So you're just looking at tea and the mountain, and you feel like you're in a movie. You're like, what is this? So going out there, we have a huge lake that I was just at last weekend, and you can rent out houses and self-cater, and it's just so beautiful. Up north, there's more lake and more mountains, and it's really beautiful. Like they do a lot of, like I said, everything's like outdoor events. So they do like outdoor like Sunday jazz, and so you just like go have a drink in the garden.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
It's amazing. Friday. Friday, I'm going on safari.
Oh my gosh!
Like, go on my.
Is that your first safari, or you've done so many? You've done so many.
The animals know your names. Safari, you're there, like Cassie, you're back. I actually did have a certificate from last time. No, this is only my second safari. But here in Malawi, it's actually much cheaper than like other places in Africa that are like Kenya and South Africa, where it's like super renowned. But we have beautiful parks here. And so, yeah, I just go I'm going to go to the lake for the weekend. I'm going to go safari for the weekend. Yes.
Amazing. So you get to really experience experience the beauty of the country.
It's so beautiful. I mean, it's a really, really small country. In each part, you go to one national park, and you're like, what is, like, it just looks so different, like the rolling hills, the lake is what, 350 miles long,
Wow.
with fish that don't exist anywhere else in the world. You can just go scuba diving, snorkeling. I'm hoping to get my scuba
Wow.
license coming up, because why
Right,
not?
right.
Will you share some photos of, some of these adventures so that we can share them with our audience? They can get a little sneak peek into the beauty that you get to experience on a regular basis.
Yes, I will definitely do that.
Awesome.
I will
Awesome.
definitely do that.
And if any of our listeners or are curious about visiting Africa or making a move, I mean, what would you tell them to, what would you want them to know, pros, cons about coming to visit or living in Africa?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would, definitely do your research, um, understand the culture, understand what's culturally acceptable there. So, for example, most places you'll visit, unless you're in like Johannesburg, our main city, you're not gonna don't show up in your short shorts. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I love a good short shirt and a short skirt, but do you want to be stared at all day by old women that are just like about to have a heart attack? They can see your whole thigh. Like, just don't, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so definitely do your research. Learn some of the language just so you can interact. Like, it's so exciting for the people that live here, because yeah, most people can speak English, but for you to
Okay.
try to learn their language, it's like a sign of respect, and a sign of like interest. Like, you're not just here to like exploit the resources. Like, you care about them and their culture. Be patient. um,
Okay.
be very patient. Things, for maybe cultural reasons, restaurants operate at a different tempo, I'll say. Um,
Right.
than other places, or things just maybe aren't as efficient for processes. But if you go to a place like Malawi, it may take you a few steps to get something done, but there's always someone there to help you. Like, it is, people are always here to help. It's really what makes this place beautiful and amazing, and feels so at home and safe. Yeah, it's really amazing.
Was that something you had to overcome, asking for help, coming, from the United States, where everything is, individual, rugged
Yep. Buck it up.
individualism,
Do
pull
it
yourself
yourself.
up by your
Yeah.
bootstraps.
Yeah.
Only you can fight COVID, nobody
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I threw those boots away. That does not work in this environment. There's always some barrier. I don't know the correct way or the right person, or I don't know that word in Jajewa. Like, there's so many barriers. That's something you definitely just gotta throw your pride out. And people want to help you. It's like, it's very different than America, where sometimes you just like, I'm a burden on you, or people make you feel like a burden on you. It's like the most inconvenient thing.
Mm-hmm.
My friends and strangers have just been so helpful here. It is the only reason I've gotten like my car insurance, my like my all these different
Wow.
things that are just like processes and are bureaucratic, that you're like, what is happening here? So yeah, or even just directing you to a good mechanic, or going around with you to find
Yeah.
parts for your, like, it's just, yeah, and not expecting anything in return, and that's hard, like the asking for help, but then also just like, you're helping me because like, I'm waiting for the
Right.
Oh, expecting a
That
right, a
phone
favor
call, like,
needed.
hey, remember that time I
Right.
helped you?
right.
Remember when I told you I'd give you a whole bunch of money if you found some dirt on our presidential candidate? Oh, no, it wasn't a quid pro quo. So one of the things it sounds like is that if you are, and this is, I think, is good for anybody that's traveling, especially Americans when you're traveling abroad, wherever you're going, is you cannot expect to go someplace else and it to be like the United States.
Oh my gosh.
If you
Right.
expect that they're going to behave the same way we behave in the States, you're not going to enjoy your trip.
And it's never wrong to be polite and aware of local customs and learn a little language.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Cassie, this has been so great having you on the show. Thank you for, arranging your schedule to talk with us today.
Yes.
I look forward to when you come back to the States, to, even on a visit to your parents here in St. Louis, please, connect with us. Let's have some Malawi gin and meet in real life in 3D, as I say.
Absolutely.
And thanks for helping us open up season 6. We really appreciate it.
It's amazing. Thank you all so much for having me. I am honored. I can't wait to see you.
All right.
Cheers.
Take care and get healthy. Ciao.
Thank you.